Hi, all. I'm Jamie Asdani. Welcome to our Impactful Projects and Planning Micro Training series. In this session, we'll talk about retrospectives and how to use them to strengthen our teams. So, what exactly are team retrospectives? Retrospectives are one of my favorite best practices from project management. Project retrospectives involve considering what went well during a project and what didn't to determine our lessons learned so that we can apply those lessons to other projects and initiatives. While there are a variety of approaches to conducting these retrospectives, I often recommend that project teams and key stakeholders at least consider the following questions. First, what did we set out to accomplish? So, what was it that we were planning to do? Second, what did we actually accomplish? So, what did we actually end up doing? Third, what went really well? So, what were the things that went exactly as planned? What was easy? What were our successes? And finally, what would we do differently next time? This question often leads us to what didn't go so well: points of failure, delay, miscommunication, or ineffective planning. Sometimes the things that didn't go well are outside of our control and we couldn't have planned for it. But often there are things that, if we were doing this project again, could be improved. From these questions, we get lessons learned or key takeaways that are documented and shared so that future projects are better informed and managed. While project retrospectives consider the past, they are actually very forward thinking, nudging us toward how we can improve future projects and collaborations. And that's why retrospectives are so very useful and can be applied beyond our projects to any of our collaborative or team endeavors. They can be used with all types of teams and with more permanent or operational activities. We don't even need to wait until the end of a project or activity to conduct a retrospective. We can use them to strengthen our teams and create a culture of continuous improvement, but also one where mistakes become lessons learned and not reasons for blame. So, today we'll talk about three ways we can use retrospectives beyond at the end of our projects to strengthen our teams. One pretty simple way to use retrospectives is to use them more often. So instead of waiting until the end of a project or collaboration, we can use retrospectives at key points in a project or initiative or team calendar. More frequent use makes them a normal part of your team's way of working. We can apply these same questions from a project retrospective to a variety of team collaborations and more frequently to understand lessons learned and work towards improvements. For example, you could use them at key milestones in a project, program, or initiative, perhaps at the end of each phase or stage of work. Often, the lessons learned at an earlier milestone can be applied throughout the rest of your project or collaboration. For more ongoing teams, such as committees, you could use them at various points in your team's timeline or calendar, like at the end of every quarter, every few months, or annually. You could also make them a part of key events or celebrations, like annual retreats or professional development days. You could even borrow from more agile project management approaches and let your team post their thoughts or answers to these questions anytime throughout a project or collaboration, perhaps keeping a running list of what's going well and ways to improve. Some agile teams use continue, stop, and start boards to add things that they want to continue doing. So, what's working well, stop doing what isn't working, and start doing. So, what improvements can we try? Whether it's a continue, stop, and start board or a discussion during a team meeting or event, using retrospectives more frequently allows your team to get more comfortable with continuously evaluating and improving. Our next way to use retrospectives is in our regular team meetings. So we can take the essence of these questions and make them a regular part of our staff meetings. So here's a few ideas for how this might look. So we can add a retrospective to the agenda of our regular team or staff meetings. We could use it as sort of a team check in. So perhaps at the beginning or end of a meeting, we can ask what's going well and what we should be doing differently. If using it with larger groups that may include folks that don't regularly or really work together, you may want to put some context around these questions, like asking folks to share a project or initiative from their smaller subgroup that's going really well, or ask if there is some improvement anyone or any particular smaller team is working on. You could also make it something you ask when your team shares updates or reports or presentations during meetings. So you might follow up their update with something like, great update. So, what's working really well? What could be improved? Our goal here is to inject these questions into our regular ways of working for our teams to get used to considering these questions as they work or collaborate. If you don't want to spring these questions on folks during a meeting, you can let them know ahead of time that this is information they should be ready to share. Perhaps it's even something that they should include in their reports or updates. Another way to use retrospectives is as part of our team feedback process. So we can add it to more formal feedback processes, perhaps as self evaluation questions. So if you ask your team members to submit self evaluations, you could ask what went really well and what could be improved. It could also be a part of our discussion during a formal feedback meeting. So if you meet with your staff for an annual or periodic evaluation, include retrospective questions as something to discuss. The focus could even be on your work together as a supervisory team of two, considering what went well and what could be improved. Similarly, retrospective questions could be a discussion point in any informal feedback interaction. So, when talking with a staff member, these questions could guide how that feedback conversation occurs. So, instead of offering simple kudos or constructive suggestions, frame the discussion around what we hope to accomplish, what was actually accomplished, and what went well, and what could be improved. I found this type of approach really useful when conducting interventions with staff. So, when feedback is intended to be corrective or solve a particular problem or issue, we can still approach it with a retrospective frame and focus on lessons learned and what could be done differently next time. Discussing what they were attempting to accomplish and what was actually accomplished in regards to behavior can be very helpful in these types of discussions. So, that's a very, very quick introduction to three ways we can use retrospectives beyond the end of a project to strengthen our teams by using them more often in our team meetings and during feedback. If you want more information on how to conduct a retrospective, download our project retrospective worksheet. This free download of our simple worksheet is available at guides.yazdaniconsulting.com. Great. So, in the LinkedIn Live of this training, I was happy to take questions from folks. I'm happy to take questions from those of you watching it on YouTube. Feel free to either leave your questions as a comment or reach out to me directly. All of the ways to contact me are available at yazdaniconsulting.com. Contact. So, some of the questions that I've received about this topic that I'll share here on this video is, so, what if my team just isn't interested in participating in a retrospective? And I would say that this is really common, as folks are often fatigued or checked out by the time we get around to doing retrospectives. One strategy is to let your team know well ahead of time that a retrospective is happening so that they know what to expect. They're prepared, and it doesn't feel like something you've sort of added on or tacked on to the end of a project. As mentioned earlier, I also think it helps if you conduct them more frequently so they become the norm. You could also try to do the retrospective as a survey or on a shared document, making it as easy and accessible as possible for people. Another question is, how is this different than other continuous improvement methods? I would say that retrospectives are a tool in the continuous improvement toolkit. Many continuous improvement approaches come from manufacturing and product environments where success tends to be more easily quantified and metrics more simply calculated. Since I tend to work with mission driven organizations offering services, or with fewer quantitative metrics, tools and approaches that can be more broadly applied and work in less metrics focused environments tend to be what I suggest. And so that's why I really love project retrospectives and using them in a variety of ways. Again, feel free to reach out and message me with any additional thoughts or questions. So, thank you so much. If you need support leading your projects and teams, visit our project strategies page at yazdaniconsulting.com projects to learn more. Thanks for participating in our impactful projects and planning micro training series. Visit yazdaniconsulting.com IPP to view all of the sessions in the series and learn about upcoming micro trainings. Thank you so much.